Hikari is an ugly loser who was bullied by everyone for being an otaku. However, his life changes when he coincidentally meets the school's hottest baddie, accidentally rizz her, and makes her fall head over heels for him. Everything started on the day that Hikari was late for school. When he finally arrived, his teacher informed him that he was late, alongside a beautiful and charming girl. Hikari is aware that her name is Iroha and her reputation of being a 304, which causes him to dislike her.
Why are you gay?
For their lateness, the teacher punishes them by having them clean the pool after class. After the teacher leaves, Iroha looks at Hikari's bangs and calls them gross, reminding him why he hates real girls. Later in class, Hikari assumes that Iroha will neglect her punishment because of her personality. But to his surprise, she is already at the pool, diligently cleaning it on her own. When Hikari attempts to assist her, she accidentally falls into the pool with him, creating a cheap rom-com situation. Eventually, they leave to dry themselves, and Iroha asks him to strip, which he quickly rejects. Suddenly, she removes her shirt, shocking him, as he is inexperienced at facing 3D plots. Recognizing his virginness, Iroha advises him to fall in love, but Hikari rejects the idea and confronts her about earlier calling him gross. She then decides to go home, which initially relieves Hikari, though he remains conflicted. A few days later, Hikari and Yuto visit a fast food restaurant, where they spend time playing games like a couple of nerds together. Their gaming session is interrupted when a group of girls from school notice Hikari and begin mocking him for being a loser, while also ridiculing Yuto for associating with him. This angers Hikari, but the girls continue laughing and dismiss his attempt to defend his friend. Hikari feels both anger and sadness, having endured ridicule throughout his life. However, another voice intervenes. Iroha suddenly appears and asks who the ugly girls are. Offended, the witches quickly withdraw, leaving the scene as Hikari is left astonished by Iroha's actions. She then explains that she is alone and only came there to eat in peace because she does not have friends. Yuto mistakenly assumes that they are dating, which both Hikari and Iroha immediately deny. Before leaving, Iroha clarifies her earlier comment, assuring Hikari that she never actually found his bangs disgusting, and she even compliments Yuto's cat ears by calling them cute, making him reconsider his views on real girls. It is then that the two nerdy losers begin to consider that Iroha might actually be a good person. On another school day, Hikari witnesses Iroha kissing a boy in the hallway and immediately hides. He notices there is another guy involved as well, causing him to get mad at Iroha for two-timing him. The guy kissing her quickly runs away because the other guy is much bigger, and that bigger guy decides he wants to punish Iroha. Hikari rushes in and starts hitting him with a stick. Iroha tries warning Hikari that he cannot win, but he refuses to give up and instead gets beaten up. When Hikari wakes up, Iroha is sitting beside him, which embarrasses him enough to tell her to leave. But out of nowhere, she kisses him on the lips as a thank you. Hikari tries to act cool and tells her to go, which she does. But he is left feeling something entirely new, and to his surprise, he actually likes it. The next day, Yuto is shocked to see Hikari covered in injuries, and Hikari tells him everything. Suddenly, Iroha appears and directly asks Hikari to be her boyfriend, causing the entire class to stare. This just angers Hikari, so he harshly rejects her, to which she says nothing and simply walks away, leaving Yuto worried. The following day, Hikari goes to the hospital for a checkup and notices Iroha crying alone on a bench. Knowing he cannot simply approach her after what he said, he decides to follow her like a stalker instead. Eventually, they arrive at a bookstore where Hikari continues spying on her until the bookseller suddenly begins accusing Iroha of stealing something. Iroha dislikes where this is going and attempts to prove her innocence by taking off her clothes to show she is not hiding anything. But before she can strip down completely, Hikari jumps in to protect her and proves to the bookseller that Iroha did not steal anything, which ends with her getting let off. Later, as it begins raining, Hikari gives Iroha his umbrella. She gently accepts it and apologizes for asking him out, only to reveal that she did it because she genuinely wanted to, forcing Hikari to rethink everything. On another school day, Hikari gets sick from the rain, and his mom tells him to stay home, but he refuses because he does not want to ruin his attendance record. He forces himself to go to school anyway, arrives late again, and predictably gets stuck cleaning the pool with Iroha once more. Iroha notices that he is sick because of her, so she leans in close and kisses him out of nowhere, claiming she is taking his fever back from him. She then offers to handle the punishment alone, leaving Hikari stunned. After she leaves, Yuto comes to check on Hikari, who is alone and feeling miserable. Hikari tells Yuto that he has been thinking about how differently he should have lived these past few years, now knowing what it feels like to have a baddie in his lips. Suddenly, Hikari stands up and runs to the pool, finally ready to throw away his pride. He finds Iroha cleaning alone, walks straight up to her, and tells her that he wants to start dating her. The two hug like they are about to live happily ever after, until Iroha suddenly drops the bomb that she has to transfer schools in a couple of months. Later, Hikari thinking about how he will only get to date Iroha for months, making him question whether the relationship is even worth starting. While Yuto is congratulating him for leveling up his nerd status, Iroha appears and asks Hikari to walk home with her. He agrees, and they immediately attract attention from the entire school, since nobody can believe that Iroha is actually dating a limp willy loser like him. When some guy starts trash-talking Hikari, Iroha gets in his face to show him who is boss, but Hikari quickly pulls her away from the crowd. He explains that he hates being in the spotlight because of his anxiety, while Iroha insists insists that he should be brave, since she cannot stand how strangers mock him for enjoying what he loves. They continue walk home together, and Hikari wonders whether she is truly being genuine with him. Then, by accident, his hand brushes against hers, which causes him to immediately act tougher and cooler than he actually feels. Out of nowhere, Iroha asks what he is doing on Sunday, and Hikari tells her that he plans on buying a video game. When Sunday arrives, Hikari goes to the video game store and buys the new Grandma Lover game, only to unexpectedly see Iroha walking around with another guy, leaving him disappointed. That night, Hikari finds himself thinking about how Iroha once called his hobbies boring, and he tries convincing himself that he does not care. Suddenly, he hears rocks hitting his window, and when Hikari checks outside, he discovers Iroha there fully dressed like she is about to go on a date. The two head to the nearest park because Iroha missed him, though Hikari argues that they already see each other enough at school. Iroha shuts that down by saying school does not count as actual dating, and this reminds Hikari of what he saw earlier that day, so he confronts her about it, which surprises her. Without warning, Iroha stands up, drags Hikari to a love hotel, and locks them inside.
Yeah, boy.
She assumes that couples in hotels are supposed to do the freaky deaky, so she starts removing her clothes, only for Hikari to panic and stop her. The two end up in an awkward position, and Iroha reveals that this is her first time doing anything like this, as she wants to prove that she is not the cheap hoe Hikari secretly assumes her to be. Hikari understands how she feels and encourages her to prove she is not a cheap girl, though Iroha quickly calls him out for clearly reading too much manga, which completely stuns him. Out of frustration, Hikari starts googling what he is even supposed to do, since this is both of their first times in a situation like this. But the stress overwhelms him, and he angrily leaves the room and Iroha on the bed. On his way home, Hikari is furious with himself, ranting aloud about how all he really wanted was to have a normal conversation with her. The following day, Hikari visits the hospital and runs into the same guy Iroha was seen walking with on Sunday. Assuming the worst, he confronts the man and the two sit together on the same bench where Hikari previously saw Iroha crying. Hikari explains his relationship with Iroha, but the doctor seems entirely unbothered by the revelation that Hikari is her boyfriend, and instead tries to explain more about Iroha. Hikari gets louder and accuses him of just playing around with her before spiraling into calling himself a loser who could never compete with someone like him. The doctor responds by mocking him back, which causes Hikari to run home as fast as possible. Later, on a school day, Hikari heads to the rooftop and confronts Iroha directly about the doctor. Before addressing that topic, Iroha first demands an apology for how badly their last meeting went. Hikari ignores that entirely and continues pressing her about the doctor, forcing Iroha to reveal that the doctor is supposedly her boyfriend, which completely shocks him. A moment later, though, she admits that she was lying and explains that the doctor is simply her family's physician because she has a serious illness. That night, he realizes he does not feel remotely prepared to deal with a girl who has a serious illness. So the very next day, he immediately declares to her that he will always be there for her like a hero, mostly because he binge-watched a bunch of Izomichi episodes and got inspired. Iroha smiles and casually reveals that she lied again, clarifying that all she actually has is asthma, leaving Hikari in total disbelief. Even so, she is relieved that he cares about her that deeply. Later, Hikari apologizes to the doctor for accusing him of secretly dating Iroha, and during their conversation, the doctor suddenly mentions that Iroha's birthday is next week. Hikari instantly panics because he has absolutely no idea what to do for a girlfriend's birthday, so the doctor encourages him to make it special. Hikari awkwardly admits that his only experience with birthdays comes from celebrating online, which frustrates the doctor enough to simply walk away, leaving Hikari alone with the crushing realization of how much of a loser he is. The next day, while walking home together, Hikari awkwardly asks Iroha what kinds of things she likes, and from out of nowhere, Iroha says she wants to visit his house, leaving him with absolutely no way to refuse. When they arrive, Hikari's mom is stunned that her son has somehow brought a girl home. Iroha politely introduces herself, but Hikari's mother is busy processing the fact that her son has a girlfriend. Once inside his room, Iroha admits that she likes the version of Hikari who does not hide who he truly is. The two then spend time watching Izomichi together, and her open-mindedness leaves a positive impression on Hikari. Moved by this, he gently reaches for her hand and tells her how much he appreciates how accepting she is, before awkwardly touching her hair. Iroha smiles, amused by the fact that she has already given him far more kisses than he has ever given her hair touches. The two slowly lean closer for a kiss, only for Hikari's mom to suddenly walk in and accidentally drop a cake after nearly witnessing her son kissing a girl. The next day, Hikari tells Yuto about Iroha's upcoming birthday, and the two are completely lost on what gift to buy her. Yuto eventually suggests learning clay potting, which Hikari decides is an amazing idea. Then, with Yuto's help, Hikari finally completes a handmade birthday present for Iroha. Days later, Hikari's mom secretly gives him tickets tickets to an amusement park and quietly tells him to invite Iroha. He immediately tells her about the tickets, and Iroha becomes so excited that she asks him to skip school for the day. Hikari agrees, and the two head off to the amusement park, where Iroha happily drags him from attraction to attraction, and the two spend the day enjoying themselves until Hikari eventually gets sick. At the end of the day, they ride the Ferris wheel together, where Hikari finally gives Iroha her birthday present. She is surprised that he even knew it was her birthday, and upon opening the gift, she discovers an action figure of herself wearing a sorceress outfit, which she finds adorable. Hikari then awkwardly explains that she feels like magic to him, since so many amazing things have happened in his life ever since meeting her. Just as he is finishing his heartfelt confession, Iroha suddenly jumps forward and kisses him, causing Hikari to completely melt while once again being reminded of how much he hates that they only have a couple of months together. A few days later, Hikari and Iroha are closer than ever, and Hikari gets excited because he can do anything with her now, as they're a couple after all. Suddenly, Ezomichi appears, calling him a huge hypocrite for trying to two-time her, which makes her furious, so she starts blasting magic beams at him. Then Hikari wakes up from his sleep, realizing he's been having weird dreams lately and they always involve Iroha. When he wakes up, he immediately notices Iroha sleeping on the floor, which reminds him that she hung out at his place after school. So Hikari tries to take a picture of her, but then realizes he's being a total freak. Suddenly, Iroha wakes up and notices Hikari was asleep too, realizing he didn't do anything weird to her while she was out. Then, at school, Yuto confronts Hikari for seeming distracted, then tells him he wants to buy a new video game after school. But Hikari has to turn him down because he's supposed to go home with Iroha. After thinking about it though, Hikari changes his mind and tells Yuto he'll hang out with him instead because he can't afford to lose his only friend. Later, Hikari and Yuto hit up a fast food place where Hikari explains how precious Yuto is to him and how he can't lose a friend like him. Yuto responds by saying he's happy if Hikari's happy, but Hikari refuses his kindness, realizing that change isn't really the otaku way. This makes him wonder if he can even be happy with something he's never experienced before. The next day, Hikari notices he's in the same PE class as Iroha, but just when she waves at him, he walks away, acting like he didn't see her. Right when he walks away, a girl suddenly falls in front of him because of a banana peel. Hikari helps her up, but she gets disgusted because some otaku loser just touched her hand. Yuto notices the whole thing and asks Hikari about it, but Hikari reveals he's used to it, like a true otaku master. Later, Hikari's sitting alone in his classroom when Iroha comes to pick him up so they can go home together. But this time, Hikari's acting weird and harshly refuses her offer, which makes her angry. She leaves him alone in the classroom, and Hikari starts calling himself dumb because he's been daydreaming about her and can't tell her. Just when he's beating himself up, another girl walks up to him, and it's the girl who fell on the banana peel whose name is Arisa. She thinks Hikari's going to hurt himself, but since he's a loser, she doesn't really care and starts to leave. But before she can, Hikari stops her and asks her about love, which catches her off guard because it's such a weird question. Eventually, Arisa tells him about love and the weird feelings he's having, explaining it's totally normal for people who are falling in love. She even proves it by showing him. Arisa's still weirded out by Hikari, but he notices she's actually nice, which weirds him out. The next day, Hikari goes to Iroha's class to pick her up, but this time she's the one who refuses. She pulls her hand away from him, which stuns Hikari because there was a girl who did the same thing when he was little. Hikari immediately goes back to his classroom and sits there alone. Suddenly, Arisa appears thinking Hikari might hurt himself, but he still refuses to do that. Instead, he tells her what happened between him and Iroha, and also tells her how there's only ever been one girl who accepted him, which was when he did a folk dance with her. Hearing his story, Arisa feels bad for him and tries to encourage him. Then she notices Hikari could actually be handsome without his bangs, so she immediately sits him down and gets out her salon equipment. But before she can cut his hair, Iroha appears and stops Arisa from touching her boyfriend. Iroha doesn't like how another girl could get close to Hikari because she's scared someone else might see the good in him. She tells Arisa to leave them alone, which stuns Hikari because he thought his relationship with Iroha was over. Before leaving, Arisa congratulates Hikari for finding another girl who'll dance with him at folk dance, which makes Iroha worried. Then Hikari and Iroha are alone in the classroom, and Iroha starts telling him how insecure she is. But Hikari cuts in and tells her he's the one who's insecure and worried because he feels like he's not enough for her, as he wants the best for her. They both get emotional and hug each other to settle their issue. Later that night, Hikari's mom asks him about his relationship with Iroha because she's amazed her son is becoming a normal kid. But Hikari doesn't really care about becoming normal, as his reasons are something else entirely. Days later, Yuto and Arisa find Hikari sitting alone and listening to music. Hikari reveals he's using music to stop worrying about Iroha all the time, but it disgusts Arisa so she leaves him alone. Yuto understands his feelings, and Hikari admits he needs to do something to relax but doesn't know how. Yuto suggests he express something to Iroha, but the otakus have no idea how to do that. After school, Hikari wants to hang out with Iroha, but she can't, because she wants to watch a TV show about hot guys baking cakes, as she totally adores guys who can cook, and this gives Hikari an idea. The next day, Hikari brings homemade baked goods that he made himself, which amazes both Yuto and Iroha. Then the group invites Arisa to taste Hikari's creations, and they start having a conversation like actual friends. Arisa asked Iroha about her not having any friends, so Iroha explains why, but Arisa doesn't see her as the cheap girl type because she knows Iroha wouldn't have dated Hikari otherwise. Then Hikari asks Arisa about her progress with the guy she has feelings for, but she just tells them she's taking it slow. After school, the group goes to see the guy Arisa's into, which makes Yuto jealous because everyone around him is changing. After taking Yuto home, Iroha thanks Hikari for trying to prove himself to her, which makes him want a hug from her. But he realizes that's weird, so he keeps it to himself. Later, Hikari plays a dating video game to try understanding women's minds, but he fails, realizing women's minds are harder than rocket science. This makes him wonder what'll happen to his feelings after Iroha transfers schools. A couple days later, Hikari bakes a cake that the group enjoys together. Then Arisa's crush shows up to see her, but he asks her to lend him money like she's his dog. The group overhears his behavior, but Iroha advises them not to interrupt because it could lead to disaster. The next day, Arisa and her crush accidentally run into Iroha while they're on a date. Arisa introduces her crush to Iroha, but Iroha doesn't want to get to know them because she doesn't want friends, so she leaves. On a school day, the group's having a normal conversation when they hear Arisa's crush talking trash about her. As it turns out, he's just using her. Suddenly, Arisa appears and asks the group for their opinion, but none of them can respond because they know her crush makes her happy. Out of nowhere, Iroha walks away from them and smacks Arisa's crush with a bag because she's furious at him. Arisa sees the whole thing but doesn't really react, and she just asks the guys for their advice again. Hikari tells Arisa that her crush is a total D-bag and he doesn't want her to have a bad ending, which really moves her. The next day, the group meets up in class and Arisa reveals she broke up with her crush. It broke her heart deeply, and she starts crying. So, Hikari immediately brings them to the roof and shows them the baked goods he made because he knows sugar can calm Arisa down. While they're eating, Hikari wipes Iroha's mouth, which makes Arisa jealous. Iroha calms her down like a friend, telling her what a nice person she is, and all of this makes Hikari realize that being a normal kid isn't so bad after all. Some days later, while waiting for Iroha, Hikari gets some encouragement from Ezumichi that makes him delusional for a couple seconds. Then Iroha shows up and immediately apologizes for making him wait for hours, but he doesn't mind. She then reveals that she can't get her grades up, so she asks him to teach her, which makes him super excited. Thanks to Ezumichi's delusion, he happily agrees. Later, Iroha comes over to Hikari's house, where he teaches her math. Hikari's stunned at how bad she is at it, and how she can't figure out the problems, but he doesn't give up and keeps explaining. Then he notices she's biting her lip like she doesn't understand a thing, so he stops and suggests they invite Yuto. But that just makes it worse. To her surprise, Hikari sits next to Iroha and puts his head on her shoulder like that famous song from the 60s. But he immediately realizes he's being weird. And weirdly enough, Iroha looks shy about it, which worries him. So he asks her what's wrong. Without any warning, Hikari hugs her, but this time tightly, encouraging her to do better. He figures there's no sign of his mom coming to check on him, not knowing that his mom and brother are already spying on them. The next day, some guys are talking about the new couple, Hikari and Iroha, because one guy, Mitsuya, can't believe Iroha would date a loser like Hikari. When Hikari arrives at school, he's stunned to see someone deliver a love letter to him. He immediately knows it's a trap set by girls who'll mock him. But then, Arisa shows up, surprised that Hikari's getting popular. Hikari denies it and tells her his point of view, but Arisa encourages him to go see the sender because she feels there'll be a girl waiting for him, and he should refuse her if he's manly enough. Hearing that, Hikari goes to meet the sender, and he's not surprised it's a trap, seeing that the sender is Mitsuya. Hikari tells Mitsuya he's dating Iroha for real, and he doesn't even know what a girl like her sees in him. This makes Mitsuya furious as he reveals he's in love with Iroha. Mitsuya demands Hikari give her up, but Hikari doesn't respond, which makes him even more furious. So Mitsuya beats him up, and when Hikari wakes up, he knows he'll always lose to a guy like Mitsuya, the kind he hates the most. But something frustrates him, making him think about what he needs to change. Hikari decides to go home early without letting anyone know what happened, but he doesn't actually go home. And instead, he spends time alone at the park, thinking about how sorry he is that a girl like Iroha has a guy like him, which makes him wonder if she even loves him. Suddenly, Hikari hears a little girl crying, so he immediately calms her down and asks what happened. He learns she got lost after her brother left her alone, so he offers to let her play at his house. Just when they're about to leave, the girl's brother shows up and it's Mitsuya. He immediately grabs Hikari by the neck, thinking he did something to his sister. Hikari tries to explain, but Mitsuya doesn't want to hear it. and starts calling him the next Epstein. Hikari defends himself, but it just disgusts Mitsuya more. Before leaving, Mitsuya tells Hikari he'll forcefully take Iroha from him, which makes Hikari insecure as Mitsuya keeps mocking him. Then Mitsuya notices there's a police officer nearby, so he tells his sister to scream, which gets the cops' attention. Mitsuya lies to the officer and says Hikari's a creep, and they immediately take him to the station where he's held. Eventually, Hikari gets released because there's no evidence, but when he goes to school the next day, he notices everyone's looking at him differently. The truth is, Mitsuya spread a fake rumor about Hikari being a creep, and the whole school is disgusted by him, but Hikari's prepared for it. Then Iroha comes and confronts him about it, and Hikari takes her somewhere private and tells her they shouldn't see each other too often. But Iroha doesn't care about the rumors because she knows the real Hikari would never do such a thing. It moves him, but he still wants her to distance herself from him for a while. Then Hikari tells Yuto the same thing, but this time a guy comes up to him, saying he should move because the girls are scared of him. Meanwhile, Iroha's about to head home when she sees a message from Hikari telling her they should go home separately, which upsets her. Suddenly, Mitsuya appears and tries to talk to her, but he's stunned when Iroha ignores him. He tries to make her stay, but Iroha roasts him instead and reveals that her love for an otaku like Hikari is real. This shocks Mitsuya as he realizes he just lost to an otaku he blackmailed. Meanwhile, Hikari's brother is walking home alone when Mitsuya's sister Anzu tries to talk to him, while looking gloomy. Kaoru tells Anzu about his brother's situation and how it's affecting his life. Later, Hikari goes home to find his mom heartbroken because her son's supposedly a creep. He tries to explain it's a misunderstanding, but she doesn't listen. Then Hikari's alone in his room again, thinking about what to do, despite it not his first time being hated by the whole school. But he can't stop thinking about what'll happen to his relationship, so he calls Iroha, which surprises her. Hikari tries to be polite and manly, telling her she should find a better guy, but Iroha doesn't like how insecure he's become. She shushes him and tells him how much she loves him for who he is, and encourages him to push through the fake rumor. The next day, a bully comes up to Hikari and mocks him. But this time Hikari laughs, which disgusts everyone. He remembers what Iroha said last night, and it just makes him laugh. Meanwhile, Iroha's walking home when Anzu suddenly appears and falls in front of her. Iroha helps her stand up, and Anzu immediately asks her about Mitsuya. Just when Iroha's about to help, Mitsuya appears and confronts his sister. She reveals that Kaoru's been gloomy because she and Mitsuya falsely created a rumor about Hikari, and Anzu wants it to be over so her friend, Kaoru, can be normal again. Hearing the truth, Iroha's disgusted by Mitsuya's actions. She corners him and forces him to do the right thing. Even his sister wants to do the right thing, but the idea of apologizing to a loser disgusts Mitsuya, as he's selfishly only thinking about what's good for him. Realizing he's cornered by the woman he loves, he decides to run away from them, which disappoints his beloved sister Anzu. But Iroha has something in mind that'll fix the problem. The next day, Hikari's walking home, noticing the rumor has gotten bigger, seeing that everyone in school is throwing insults at him. But then he accidentally comes face to face with Mitsuya, who immediately tells him he doesn't want to apologize to a loser like him. Hikari's confused, so he explains how his daily life is just worse than before, but he blames himself for it, which kinda moves Mitsuya in a way. Then Mitsuya's friends show up, disgusted that he's talking to the next Diddy and Hikari. But Mitsuya defends himself selfishly, telling them he's not talking to the loser, but is just looking at how big a loser he is. Hikari's stunned, realizing Mitsuya's the real loser and a selfish guy, but Hikari shrugs it off and goes home with his friends, which is enough for him. Later, Iroha goes to Hikari's house and talks about Mitsuya's fake rumor. She wants to do something about it, but Hikari feels she doesn't need to, as the only thing he needs is for the girl he loves to know and understand the truth behind the rumor. Suddenly, Iroha hugs Hikari from behind and says the magic words, "I love you." Hikari doesn't say it back, which doesn't disappoint her. But then he tries to kiss her just as Kaoru walks into the room, interrupting them. Kaoru explains how hard his life has been, and how he doesn't like that Hikari's been so easygoing while he's known as a total creep. Kaoru wants Hikari to do something about it because he wishes he'd never become like his big brother. Before Iroha leaves, she tells Hikari's mom that everything will be fine for him. Then she talks to Kaoru about the problem. She tries to ask about Anzu, but he immediately brings her outside because he doesn't want his mom to hear about her. Kaoru's surprised Iroha knows Anzu and tells her how she's truly a good person. The next day, Hikari's being bullied by the whole school, but he's unfazed. Then he runs into Mitsuya again, who wants Hikari to make a move about his problem. Just when Hikari tries to explain, Mitsuya's friends appear, seeing him talk to the loser Hikari again. Mitsuya defends himself, saying he's not talking to Hikari, but his friends notice he's getting insecure. This makes him furious and almost starts a fight, but Hikari defends Mitsuya, which weirds them out and stops the fight. Later, while Hikari's having lunch, Mitsuya confronts him about not defending himself. Hikari feels he doesn't need to because he's already 6 feet under, and the only thing that makes him happy is just enjoying every second of it. Later, Hikari brings Mitsuya and the others to his house, where Mitsuya and Anzu explain how the rumor was fake. This makes Hikari's mom relieved, but Kaoru, on the other hand, still blames Hikari for being a big loser, and the only thing he wants is for Anzu to be okay with him. Then the group walks Mitsuya and Anzu home, where they run into Arisa. Hikari wants Mitsuya to reveal the truth to Arisa, but before he can, Arisa accidentally falls for Mitsuya and immediately asks him on a date. The next morning, Hikari accidentally bumps into a girl, and they both make a mess as books fall everywhere. After the night before, Hikari's sleepy because he watched too much Ezomichi, but he's still a gentleman and helps her. When the girl stands up, she notices Hikari left an Ezomichi book behind and wants to return it immediately, but he's already long gone. Later, Hikari realizes he dropped the Ezomichi book he just bought, and he immediately cries over it because he hasn't read it yet. Then the girl he bumped into appears with the book, and he's so thankful for her. But the girl doesn't immediately leave, as it turns out she also watches a lot of Ezomichi, making her an otaku just like Hikari. She's excited she found a guy version of herself and wants to know more about him, but just when she's about to start a conversation, Iroha suddenly appears. The girl's stunned that a guy like Hikari is actually dating someone normal, so she leaves them alone, scared because of how much of an introvert she is. Then Iroha reveals she wants to go to a festival with Hikari that night in her neighborhood. So the couple goes to the festival where they have fun, though it's mainly Hikari playing Ezomichi minigames. Then Hikari tells her he used to dislike festivals because they made him feel small, but being there with her is the complete opposite, which makes Iroha smile. Suddenly, the fireworks start and they see Mitsuya nearby, which makes Hikari ask Iroha about her feelings for him. Iroha gets angry at Hikari because she feels he still sees her as the cheap woman everybody thinks she is. Hikari tries to apologize, but she leaves him there alone after the nonsense he spewed out. The next day, Iroha hasn't texted Hikari, and it makes him panic because he was the last person she talked to. Hikari searches for her around school but doesn't find her. Instead, he runs into the girl again, Sumi. They introduce themselves, and he immediately tells her about the anime he likes, which makes her excited. Sumi wants to have a long conversation with him, but Hikari refuses because he has to find his girlfriend. This leaves Sumi excited, knowing there's another person like her. Then Arisa appears and confronts Hikari for not being in class. He explains what he's doing, but Arisa doesn't care, and asks him to help her get a date with Mitsuya instead, which is something Hikari has no interest in doing. When Hikari gets to class, he sees someone left him a flower, and he realizes it was Sumi. Hikari goes for a walk again and hears a couple guys talking bad about Sumi. Then out of nowhere, Sumi appears, thinking Hikari will mock her too. But Hikari does the opposite and talks to her about anime instead, which makes her cry. Hikari's baffled, so he gives back her flowers and reveals how big of an otaku he is, trying to cheer her up. Then Hikari leaves Sumi alone, and then he finally sees Iroha in her classroom. He tries to apologize about what he said at the festival, but this time, Iroha's pretty upset. So upset that it gives Hikari the chills. Hikari attempts to reach for her, but she refuses, firmly believing that he is a loser. He does not stop there and instead tries to explain his insecurities, yet she rejects his words entirely, which only intensifies her anger. Hikari is stunned to see that his girlfriend is genuinely upset with him, ultimately forcing him to leave her alone. The following day, Hikari encounters Sumi again, who is tending to the garden. He admires her as she presents herself as a kind and down-to-earth individual with a deep appreciation for plants. Realizing that he has been talking excessively, Hikari decides to excuse himself. But before he leaves, Sumi offers him fresh potatoes as a gesture of gratitude, expressing her happiness at having made a new friend. Despite this interaction, Hikari continues to overthink his situation with Iroha, repeatedly questioning how he might resolve their conflict. At that moment, Ezomichi appears and encourages him to improve himself and confront the issue directly, which partially motivates him. Acting on this, Hikari immediately seeks Yuto's help, but for the first time, Yuto is unavailable. This only deepens Hikari's anxiety. Although Hikari chooses to respect Yuto's situation and leaves him alone, he later notices Yuto during lunch engaged in an activity. To his surprise, Yuto is alone, speaking to a cat, almost as if he has been neglected. Recognizing his own behavior, Hikari quickly approaches Yuto and attempts to apologize for being overly self-centered. However, Yuto is dissatisfied with the manner of the apology and becomes upset, leaving Hikari alone once again. That night, Hikari cannot stop thinking about how both his best friend and his girlfriend have distanced themselves from him. He begins to feel completely isolated. In that moment, he remembers the potatoes Sumi gave him and heads to the kitchen. As he peels the potatoes, Hikari reflects on his past, where his first meeting with Yuto is far from pleasant. Back then, Yuto initially tried to befriend him, but Hikari ignored him, which led to Hikari being targeted by a bully. Yuto, concerned, watched over him. Yet when the bully threw Hikari's headphones away, Hikari searched for them, only to find that Yuto had already retrieved them. Instead of expressing gratitude, Hikari distanced himself further, even mocking Yuto in an attempt to prevent any friendship from forming. Later, when the class required a volunteer to create a banner and no one stepped forward, Yuto volunteered himself. However, he could not complete the task alone, and another student assigned Hikari to assist him. Yuto assumed that Hikari would not show up, but to his surprise, Hikari did arrive. Hikari agreed to help, not out of kindness, but because he felt obligated after Yuto's earlier assistance, considering it an even exchange. While working on the banner, they overheard Yuto's friends speaking negatively sexually about him, which deeply embarrassed Yuto. Hikari, however, remained indifferent, as his only concern was finishing quickly and going home. Later, as they walked home together under the same umbrella, Hikari offered unexpected advice, telling Yuto that he did not need friends who spoke poorly of him. Yuto responded with laughter, though Hikari remained serious. Eventually, Hikari chose to continue go home alone. Yuto attempted to lend him a towel to prevent him from getting wet, but Hikari refused once more, suggesting that Yuto's kindness should be reserved for something that offered him value in return. This statement left a strong impression on Yuto. The next day at school, Yuto initially enjoyed his time as usual until his friends approached him for homework. However, upon hearing that Hikari was being bullied, Yuto recalled Hikari's earlier words and was moved by them. Acting on impulse, he confronted the bully, only to be beaten as a result. Later, feeling both physically and emotionally defeated, after losing his friends, Yuto revealed to Hikari that he was also an otaku, surprising him. From that moment on, Yuto became Hikari's closest friend, prompting Hikari to reconsider his previous attitude toward him. Returning to the present, Hikari gathers his courage and approaches Yuto again. This time, his apology is sincere and properly expressed. In an effort to rebuild their friendship, Hikari invites Yuto to share potato dumplings that he has prepared himself, and through that, their bond is restored. With his friendship repaired, Hikari turns his attention back to Iroha. However, he notices that she remains upset and is unable to understand why. Choosing not to escalate the situation further, he decides to give her space. Later that night, Hikari goes to her house but hesitates, feeling as though his presence might appear intrusive. Unexpectedly, Iroha opens the door, having already noticed him standing outside for hours. Hikari cautiously approaches and presents her with the potato dumplings he has made. He immediately addresses the situation, apologizing for not understanding the reason behind her anger. His honesty causes Iroha to become shy, and as he prepares to leave, she suddenly pulls him inside and asks him to wait upstairs. Hikari is left speechless, as it is his first time inside a girl's room. While waiting, Hikari lies down on her bed, momentarily losing composure before Iroha returns with drinks. Breaking the silence, Hikari confronts her about her choice of clothing. Although she is wearing her usual attire, he expresses a desire for her not to wear such revealing outfits, which causes her to smile. Iroha then reveals that she cannot remain angry with him, as she realizes that Hikari still loves her in his own way. She acknowledges his efforts and reciprocates by kissing him. Hikari is momentarily stunned, but soon responds by embracing her, appreciating her warmth. However, as the situation becomes increasingly intense, Hikari realizes the potential consequences of losing control, in the form of a junior running around. Choosing restraint, he stops himself and decides to leave, believing it is the right decision to prevent things from escalating further. He quickly departs, reflecting on his own impulses, yet feeling relieved and even slightly proud of his self-control. The following day at school, Hikari avoids Iroha even as she attempts to greet him normally. Instead, he goes to the garden to give Sumi the potato dumplings he has made. She reacts with excitement and admiration, which prompts Hikari to sit with her and share the meal. Unbeknownst to them, Iroha walks down the hallway and hears Hikari's laughter in the distance. When she looks toward the garden, she is shocked to see him enjoying himself with another girl. At that moment, Arisa appears, and Iroha immediately confides in her, expressing her disappointment and frustration. So Arisa takes Iroha to the school rooftop, expressing her desire to hear everything. Initially, Iroha misinterprets Arisa's excitement as something inappropriate, but it becomes clear that Arisa is simply enthusiastic about the trust Iroha places in her. Iroha then admits that she feels jealous of another girl growing closer to Hikari and is uncertain about how to handle the situation. Arisa encourages her to communicate her feelings directly to Hikari. However, Iroha rejects this suggestion, explaining that she is not someone who imposes her feelings or expectations on others. Finding this approach uninteresting, Arisa insists that she confront him anyway, but Iroha remains resistant and considers seeking advice from someone else. Before she leaves, Arisa firmly reiterates that speaking with Hikari is the best course of action, emphasizing her belief that he will understand. Motivated by this, Iroha immediately approaches Hikari and addresses the issue directly, asking him about Sumi. Hikari notices her nervousness and hesitates, failing to provide a clear answer. This response frustrates Iroha. Feeling embarrassed, she abruptly ends the conversation and attempts to leave. Hikari tries to stop her and explain himself, but Iroha runs away before he can do so. As she pauses to collect herself, Iroha notices Sumi continuing her gardening as usual. However, she is shocked to see that Sumi has been drenched after other students throw a bucket of water at her. Although Sumi appears unbothered, Iroha understands the underlying discomfort and goes downstairs to offer her a handkerchief. Sumi quickly realizes that Iroha is Hikari's girlfriend and expresses her admiration for both of them. She begins praising Iroha's kindness and character, but the attention makes Iroha uncomfortable. Choosing to withdraw, Iroha tells Sumi to keep the handkerchief and leaves shortly after. Meanwhile, Hikari sits alone in his classroom, reflecting on Iroha and trying to understand her emotions. He acknowledges that jealousy is natural, but is surprised that someone like Iroha would feel that way toward him. At that moment, Ezomichi appears and awakens him, urging him to find Iroha as the only way to repair their relationship. As Hikari steps outside the classroom, he finds Iroha already waiting for him, as if by coincidence. They walk together to a nearby park, where Iroha explains her interaction with Sumi and admits that she realizes how kind Sumi truly is. Hikari feels relieved that Iroha is no longer visibly upset, yet he still wants to make amends. Before he can act further, however, Iroha abruptly runs away again. The following day, Arisa confronts Hikari, accusing him of growing closer to Sumi after he prepares food for her once more. Explains that he is simply returning the kindness Sumi showed him by giving him fresh vegetables, but Arisa remains unconvinced. At that moment, Sumi arrives, bringing fresh tomatoes as a gesture of appreciation for Hikari's cooking. Arisa, surprised by this, immediately begins assessing Sumi. However, Sumi becomes flustered by Arisa's presence and beauty, inadvertently revealing her awkward, otaku-like tendencies, which Arisa quickly notices. Hikari then suggests that they should stop constantly repaying each other's kindness, as it creates an endless cycle. But Arisa resolves the situation by taking some of the tomatoes herself, effectively ending the exchange. Shortly afterward, Yuto arrives. When Sumi compliments his cat-like features, he becomes embarrassed and awkwardly withdraws. The next day, the group invites Sumi to join them for lunch. She experiences a sense of belonging she has never felt before and is delighted to see the tomatoes she grew being shared and enjoyed. During lunch, Sumi notices that Yuto remains unusually quiet and attempts to engage him in conversation, unaware of his shyness around unfamiliar people. When Yuto does not respond, Sumi assumes that her presence is unwelcome and prepares to leave. However, Hikari and Arisa encourage her to stay, assuring her that she does not need to repay their kindness. Overwhelmed by their sincerity, Sumi becomes emotional and begins to cry. Seeing this, Yuto quietly offers her a handkerchief, and this simple gesture moves her even more, as she reflects on receiving similar kindness from both Yuto and Iroha. The next morning, Hikari visits Sumi while she is gardening. He consciously avoids mentioning her earlier emotional moment, but notices something in her hair. As he reaches out to inspect it, Sumi is startled by the sudden closeness. When Hikari realizes it is a caterpillar, he reacts nervously and quickly retreats. Despite this, Sumi smiles, her heart racing from the brief interaction. Later, Iroha contemplates asking Hikari out on a date and wonders about his weekend plans. Before she can ask, Hikari casually mentions that he plans to walk around the city with Yuto, unintentionally discouraging her plan. Realizing his mistake, he invites her to join them, but Iroha declines. The next day, before leaving home, Hikari's mother gives him money to buy new clothes, hoping he will present himself better. Unsure of what to choose, Hikari struggles, and Yuto is unable to assist. At that moment, Mitsuya appears. Although reluctant, he agrees to help Hikari improve his appearance. After purchasing clothes, the three encounter a maid working nearby, only to realize that it is Sumi. She explains her situation, but the moment is interrupted when a group of men attempts to pressure her into going with them and experience the Eiffel Tower. Uncomfortable, Sumi is unable to respond, prompting Hikari to step in and defend her, and his actions leave her deeply affected. Later, as Hikari and Yuto walk home, Yuto attempts to discuss something important. However, Hikari suddenly remembers that he has neglected Iroha and abruptly leaves Yuto to meet her. He finds Iroha at the park, expressing that he misses her and does not want to lose time with her, which ends with them spending the evening together like a couple. The following day, Hikari and Yuto encounter Sumi on their way to school as she rushes past them. She stops briefly to thank Hikari for helping her the previous day, before continuing on her way. However, Yuto appears to harbor lingering feelings about the situation. Later, the group gathers for a meeting, where Arisa proposes a camping trip at her grandfather's house. Hikari initially refuses due to his preferences, but the others express enthusiasm about spending time together. As a result, Hikari reluctantly agrees and invites Mitsuya as part of his arrangement with Arisa. Meanwhile, Yuto quietly considers whether it would be appropriate to invite Sumi, as he begins to realize that he may be developing feelings for her. The last time Hikari went camping, the experience felt like a nightmare due to the absence of internet access, video games, and anime Tuguntu. Now, he finds himself camping once again, this time with his friends at Arisa's lodge. His first activity begins abruptly when Arisa pushes him into the lake. Meanwhile, the others finish cleaning the lodge, allowing them to move on to additional activities. Mitsuya and Sumi are also present, and Sumi wears a Hunger Games-inspired costume, which she finds amusing. For their next activity, the group decides to prepare a meal. Sumi and Yokto work together on the ingredients, gradually becoming more comfortable with one another. At the same time, Arisa and Mitsuya prepare the barbecue. Arisa comments that Sumi and Yuto resemble an old married couple, which irritates Mitsuya. During their conversation, Arisa learns that Mitsuya is single and begins to hope that he might develop feelings for her. However, Mitsuya bluntly states that Arisa is not his type, citing multiple red flags in her personality, which leaves her stunned. Eventually, the group prepares a full meal and everyone enjoys it. Sumi becomes emotional, shedding tears of happiness as she experiences genuine enjoyment. Most of the group relates to her feelings, while Arisa and Mitsuya, to despite their earlier reluctance, begin to reconsider their attitudes toward the gathering. After the meal, Mitsuya offers to wash the dishes but discovers that Iroha has already started. He attempts to assist her, but she refuses, revealing her hatred toward him. She explains that she dislikes him for causing trouble for Hikari. Mitsuya attempts to justify himself, claiming that he has gradually come to like Hikari. However, he undermines his own argument by stating that he was the one who allowed their relationship to happen, which further disgusts Iroha due to his self-centered perspective. Later, the group goes fishing by the river. Yuto becomes impressed by Sumi's unexpected skills, finding her increasingly intriguing. In contrast, Sumi focuses her attention on Hikari, who is enjoying himself with Iroha. Meanwhile, Arisa catches an unusual fish and becomes so frightened that she accidentally pushes both herself and Sumi into the river. Afterward, the group gathers around the fireplace so Arisa and Sumi can warm themselves. As Arisa attempts to explain the incident, Sumi prepares fish for herself and Yuto. During their meal, Yuto asks Sumi to stop using a nickname for him, and she agrees. However, when she addresses him properly, Yuto becomes flustered and retreats, embarrassed by his own reaction. He begins to recognize feelings similar to those Hikari experienced when Iroha confessed to him, leaving him uncertain about how to approach the situation. Later that night, Hikari and Sumi decide to engage in a quiet activity before midnight. As the others grow tired, they go to the kitchen to prepare tea. Meanwhile, Iroha and Arisa share a private moment, during which Arisa expresses gratitude for Iroha's constant support. Iroha accepts her appreciation, but insists that no repayment is necessary, a sentiment they both understand. Suddenly, a loud noise comes from the kitchen. Hikari and Sumi accidentally drop the teapot, resulting in Sumi burning her hand. The group rushes in to investigate, and Hikari immediately instructs Yuto to retrieve ice. While Yuto is away, Sumi notices Iroha's jealousy toward her interaction with Hikari and attempts to act as though everything is normal. When Yuto returns, he experiences a similar sense of jealousy upon seeing Sumi close to Hikari. Both Yuto and Iroha step outside for fresh air, each silently questioning their own emotions. They recognize that they are concealing their feelings from one another and mutually decide not to address them. Arisa soon joins them, calling them back inside. While Yuto complies, Iroha chooses to remain outside. Arisa, refusing to leave her alone, throws a blanket over her and confronts her directly about suppressing her emotions. She suggests that Iroha may be reconsidering her decision to date Hikari. Iroha doesn't respond and attempts to leave, but Arisa stops her and insists that she face the situation head-on. Despite this, Iroha remains unconvinced, leaving both of them momentarily speechless. Mitsuya then calls everyone to play cards despite his own lack of enthusiasm. The group gathers, but only Hikari and Mitsuya appear to enjoy the game. In the middle of the activity, Sumi suddenly becomes weak and nearly collapses, explaining that she feels feverish. The group panics, but Sumi reassures them that it is a condition she occasionally experiences. After taking medicine, she goes to rest while Iroha stays by her side. During this time, Iroha admits that she has felt uneasy due to Sumi's closeness with Hikari. Unexpectedly, Sumi wakes up and returns the handkerchief Iroha had given her. Overcome with emotion, Sumi confesses that Iroha is the first person to make her genuinely happy, which causes Iroha to feel guilty. Iroha insists that Sumi keep the handkerchief, but Sumi refuses and forces it back into her hands, while making a further confession that deeply unsettles Iroha. Distressed, Iroha leaves the room. Hikari approaches her immediately and asks about Sumi, but Iroha is too upset to respond honestly. Sensing that something is wrong, Hikari presses her for an answer. When she refuses to speak, he pushes further, which causes her to break down in tears. As she runs away, Hikari attempts to follow, but Arisa intervenes, kicking him to stop him. Arisa expresses disbelief that Hikari has made Iroha cry and demands that he take responsibility. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Hikari immediately begins searching for her. Despite their efforts, the group cannot locate Iroha. Arisa and Mitsuya place the blame on Hikari, but he remains focused, understanding that Iroha's safety is the priority. While Hikari and Arisa continue searching, Sumi wakes up and becomes concerned. She admits that the situation is her fault, revealing that she confessed her feelings for Hikari to Iroha in front of Mitsuya and Yuto. Mitsuya criticizes her, but Yuto intervenes, disapproving of his harsh treatment. Meanwhile, Iroha wanders alone in the forest, growing cold as she reflects on the situation. She realizes that Hikari is not entirely to blame. At the same time, Hikari and Arisa pause during their search, and Hikari explains that he simply wants to enjoy time with his friends, as his previous camping experience had been unpleasant. He thanks Arisa for making this trip possible. In response, Arisa urges him to focus on making Iroha happy rather than overthinking. Hikari then continues the search alone, burdened by the negative perceptions others have expressed about him. More than anything, he is troubled by the realization that he continues to hurt Iroha, leaving him uncertain whether she still has feelings for him. Hikari keeps searching for Iroha but can't find her. He thought a relationship was just fun and happiness, but he's realizing there's way more to it. Then Hikari finally finds Iroha sitting alone in the middle of the forest, freezing. He gives her a blanket and immediately talks to her about his problem. Hikari understands that he's the problem and wants to fix it together with her. But before they can talk about it, Arisa suddenly appears and forces the couple to go back to the lodge because it's freezing. When the three get back, Arisa tells the others that Iroha just got lost while finding vegetables, but Sumi knows she's lying. Suddenly, Sumi almost collapses, but thankfully Arisa's there to help her. Later, Iroha and Hikari get to talk privately about their relationship, and Iroha reveals she feels like she's the one to blame for the whole thing because she doesn't like Hikari being kind to others, and she knows it's wrong for her to feel that way, which makes her hate herself. However, Hikari can't understand the whole thing, which disappoints Iroha. She then tells him they should think about what the future holds for them, which makes Hikari overthink to the sky. Later, Arisa tells Mitsuya how she's glad someone cleaned the lodge even after the incident happened. She feels Hikari and Iroha's relationship is getting weirder because the couple always misunderstands each other, which annoys Mitsuya. He reminds Arisa that she's too kind for trying to fix someone's relationship, which she immediately notices. Arisa immediately asks him out, but just gets rejected. Suddenly, Hikari appears and asks the two about Iroha's problem with him. They don't see the problem as that huge because Hikari never gets jealous of Iroha when she's kind to others. But he does get sad and wonders why a girl like Iroha would fall for him, which annoys them. So, they jokingly tell him to give up. The next morning, Sumi's going home alone, but Yuto insists on taking her there because she's sick. Sumi appreciates his company but keeps talking about how she ruined the camping trip and Iroha's relationship. She decides she'll confess to Hikari when the time is right, which upsets Yuto, but he'd rather not respond. Meanwhile, Hikari's also going home, wondering what went wrong with his relationship. He falls asleep and dreams of his childhood friend, Julia, a girl who adored his drawings, which made them closer. But the boys in his class didn't like him for always doing girly-themed drawings, so he forced himself to draw boy-themed stuff, which got their attention. Hikari kept drawing until his senior year and somehow got bullied for it. His friend Julia then left him because people saw him as an otaku. Suddenly, Hikari wakes up from his dream and gets some encouragement. He knows making Iroha cry was wrong, so he's ready to immediately talk to her or punish himself. The next day, Hikari immediately finds Iroha and tries to talk about their problem, but she's not in the mood because she knows talking won't fix their relationship. Hikari's stunned that she's so upset, but he still wants to talk to her about it. He wants to tell her how much he loves her, but he's nervous even after practicing it before bed. Eventually, Hikari fails and doesn't tell her anything because Sumi texts him, which makes Iroha more upset. So Hikari runs away from Iroha to meet Sumi, and he's stunned to hear what she has to tell him. At first, they're having a normal conversation, and then Sumi apologizes for getting Iroha upset, which confuses Hikari. But then Sumi confesses her true feelings to him, which she also told Iroha. That freezes Hikari, and he can't believe his popular phase has begun, thinking about how he could be a player, but Sumi snaps him out of it, telling him she wishes their breakup could change his mind. Hikari's stunned to hear her thought process, so he immediately runs away from her, knowing it's wrong. Hikari goes to hide, trying to process his feelings for other people because it's overwhelming. He knows he's a big idiot for being so insecure, which makes him confused about what to do next. Suddenly, Yuto appears, and Hikari can't explain anything to him. He starts explaining what a big idiot he is, and Yuto encourages him, but then confronts him about Sumi's confession. Hikari's stunned that Yuto knows, so he tells him about his problems with Iroha and how much he's hurt her, making him scared to reject Sumi. Hearing that, Yuto's furious at Hikari because he ran away from a girl who confessed to him, which he finds terrifying. Yuto then calls Hikari selfish and a big idiot before running away. Later that night, Hikari learns he's just a big loser who always misunderstands everything. He blames himself for it, making him realize his friends and girlfriend might not smile at him again, which worries him. The next day, Hikari immediately meets Arisa and asks her to punch him. He explains he needs that punch because he feels she's the only person who knows the bad side of him, which he's grateful for. Arisa's confused, so she pats him on the head and advises him to show more of his good side, which in his case, being a better man. Meanwhile, Iroha is on the school's roof, thinking about the last time she saw Hikari and how he upset her. Suddenly, Mitsuya appears with a bunch of lunch food. He tries to be nice because he knows Iroha's worried about Hikari, and at first, Mitsuya mocks Hikari's behavior and personality, which Iroha doesn't like. Then he reveals that Hikari is trying hard to fix their relationship despite being so clueless, which he respects. Iroha also knows that because she blames herself for their relationship, as she doesn't have the same hobbies as Hikari. Mitsuya smiles at her because he knows a guy who would find that cute, which is himself. But nevertheless, he encourages her to try talking to Hikari because it's the only thing they can do to fix their relationship, and Iroha thanks him for it. Later, Sumi gets a text from Hikari because he feels that not knowing how Iroha feels about him is a heavy burden, so he tells Sumi to wait by the garden because he'll be ready to respond to her confession by then. The next day, Hikari goes to talk about love with Izumichi. Hikari's super confused about what to say to Sumi and Iroha, but Izumichi encourages him to do the right thing. Hikari feels like he can't reject Sumi because she's been so kind to him, but Izumichi literally slaps him in the face and tells him he needs some imagination, like thinking about how bad this could be for Iroha. Suddenly, Hikari wakes up in his bed and realizes just how difficult love actually is. Later at school, Hikari goes to meet Sumi in the garden like he promised, but things get super awkward because they're both just standing there. Sumi suggests they cut to the chase and answer the big question, which Hikari totally gets. Hikari understands that Sumi likes him because of how kind and good he is, but he tells her about how much he used to hate Iroha at the beginning. Hikari wasn't a fan of her at all, but after spending time with her, he finds her relatable and kinda awkward, but they manage to meet in the middle and fall in love. Hikari tries explaining his relationship with Iroha using baseball terms and reveals that Iroha is the person who changed him for the better, letting him enjoy things he didn't enjoy at first and introducing him to the real world. After thinking about it, Hikari knows he has to fix his relationship and protect her. Eventually, Hikari walks to the side and literally grabs Iroha, who's hiding behind a bush, and shows her to Sumi. He tells her that Iroha is the person he loves, which is his answer to her confession. Sumi understands what Hikari's trying to tell her, and she's happy for him. But then Sumi and Hikari suddenly collapse because they just used up their entire social battery. Afterward, Hikari and Iroha go sit together under a tree where Iroha teases Hikari about being so sweet. Hikari gets embarrassed, but then he surprisingly makes the first move and kisses Iroha on the lips. They stop midway because Iroha feels like it's been forever since they last kissed, but they continue, which is like a battery for Hikari's life. Meanwhile, Yuto is amazed by how strong Sumi is for not crying after getting rejected by Hikari. Suddenly, Sumi starts crying and Yuto's there for her, giving her another handkerchief and trying to calm her down. Without them knowing, a couple of girls are watching them, and they find Sumi and Yuto cute together but still mock Yuto. Then Arisa appears and doesn't let the girls slide, so she yells at them for mocking Yuto. Suddenly, Mitsuya shows up, which makes the girls run away because of his good looks. Mitsuya also witnesses Yuto getting closer to Sumi, which makes Arisa want to date him, but he still rejects her. Later, Hikari goes home and runs into Yuto on the way. Yuto and Hikari reconnect like they used to, but Hikari's stunned when Yuto reveals he has feelings for a girl. Hikari wants to know who it is, but Yuto stays silent because he knows the girl won't like him back. Hearing this, Hikari asks Yuto to sleep over at his house like the good old days, and that night, Yuto has fun at Hikari's house with Kaoru. But then they go to sleep, and Yuto tells him about how hard and fun falling in love is. Hikari wants to talk to Yuto about it, but he's too late because Yuto falls asleep. In the past, Iroha was always the beautiful girl that everyone liked. She received many confessions, from classmates to even old prunes in the neighborhood, but it was always because of her plots and good looks. One time, a guy tried to ask her out, saying he liked her because he liked how she talked to her turtle friend, which completely disgusted Iroha. Eventually, Iroha went to the doctor and found out she had insecurities that could not be healed. But she managed to cope by becoming a people-pleaser and going on countless dates with different people. One guy eventually realized that Iroha was actually empty and insecure inside, but he used that as an excuse just to get under her pants. Since then, Iroha knew she had to think about herself more. Suddenly, Iroha wakes up from her sleep, realizing she dozed off while on a date with Hikari. Iroha tells Hikari she's okay and immediately changes the topic, wanting to go to his house again because she feels like they need to take their relationship to the next step. Hikari gets nervous when Iroha says something like that, but Iroha doesn't want to push him. Then the couple accidentally runs into Kaoru walking with Anzu. Hikari's confused why they're walking together, but then he realizes they're holding hands like a couple. Hikari's stunned, which embarrasses Kaoru, so Kaoru quickly tries to escape from his brother. Before they leave, Anzu introduces herself to Hikari, and it shocks him because he feels like his life just slowed down. Iroha can only smile at this, but then she asks Hikari to go to a karaoke and bowling place because Hikari hasn't been there yet. While the couple is at the karaoke and bowling place, Iroha realizes her feelings for Hikari are getting more intense and real. Iroha's feelings for Hikari used to be just curiosity, but after seeing how different he is from the others, she falls deeply in love. Then Iroha tries to bowl, but she realizes she hurts her nails while doing it. Hikari insists on cutting them for her because he's worried she'll get hurt, and Iroha happily accepts. Hikari cuts them slowly while Iroha thinks about the first time she realized how different Hikari is from the others. Meanwhile, Hikari is thinking about the time he spent with Iroha before she moved, and it encourages him to make great memories with her, so he'll remember her in his heart forever. A few days later, Yuto's super excited because he gets 2 tickets to see the new anime movie, and he invites Hikari to watch it with him. But Hikari realizes he can't make it because he has a family trip to go on, and Yuto understands. To cheer Yuto up, Hikari tells him to invite Sumi instead. After all, she also loves the anime, making her kind of the same as Hikari. But Yuto immediately refuses because he's still too shy. Hikari realizes he shouldn't push Yuto so hard, and Yuto seems to be feeling down because he's worried he'll watch it alone. So Yuto decides to take Hikari's advice and invite Sumi. At first, Yuto's shy, but eventually he goes to invite her anyway, just like a friend. Without them knowing, Hikari's watching them from the second floor, and he's surprised that Yuto actually took his advice. Then he notices Yuto blushing, which makes him and Arisa proud of the upcoming couple. Later, Hikari's walking home with Iroha, and she tries to get his attention. Hikari likes to space out lately because he's worried sick about Yuto's date with Sumi, and Iroha tells Hikari that they should go on another bowling date, but then she also wants a movie date, which she finds fun. Meanwhile, Arisa accidentally sees them from a distance, and she gets jealous because she's the only one who doesn't have a partner. Suddenly, her ex appears and immediately compliments her looks. Her ex learns that she isn't seeing anyone, so he quickly asks her to go out that weekend, which Arisa finds interesting. A couple of days later, Yuto's waiting for Sumi outside the cinema, and he's an hour early because he doesn't want to leave a bad impression. Yuto feels sick and wants to go home, but before he can, Sumi suddenly runs up to him excited. Yuto learns that Sumi is pretty excited about the movie, and it makes him smile, which is a step toward getting closer to her. Then the two go to a cafe where Sumi appreciates Yuto for being nice and thoughtful. Hearing how much fun she's having, Yuto gets excited himself because he sees a resemblance of himself in Sumi, which makes him like her more and blush. Meanwhile, Arisa's waiting for her ex in town. She notices it's been a long time since she put effort into how she dresses, making her confident that any guy will fall for her. However, a few hours passes and Arisa's upset because of how horrible her date with her ex went, making her furious about how stupid he is. Suddenly, Mitsuya appears and sees Arisa kicking the streetlights. Mitsuya confronts her like he knows something's wrong and asks her to eat ramen together. At first, Arisa doesn't want to, but immediately changes her mind. Then the two finish eating, and Arisa sees Yuto on a date with Sumi, which makes her smile even bigger. But Mitsuya has to ruin it by telling her she has something on her teeth. The next day, while Yuto and Hikari are talking, Sumi comes by their class because she wants to give the used ticket to Yuto. Hikari's surprised that Yuto and Sumi went on a date, but then Sumi tells him she wants to see the movie with him, which ruins Yuto's mood. Sumi immediately apologizes to Hikari because it sounds like she's asking him out, which upsets Yuto. After Sumi leaves, Hikari knows that Yuto has feelings for her, so he thinks about helping him get her. Later that night, Hikari's confused about how to get Yuto to confess to Sumi because he feels like it's impossible. But then he calls Iroha to help him set up a picnic, like he's planning something big for his best friend. A couple of days later, Hikari and the others go to a picnic at a park. Hikari and Sumi make the food, and they all sit down together. But Yuto notices that Hikari's acting weird that day, and he's suspicious of him. Then, just when Sumi gives a wet tissue to Yuto, Hikari immediately pulls Iroha with him, leaving Yuto and Sumi alone. Hikari doesn't tell Iroha about his plan to help Yuto get closer to Sumi, but Iroha already knows from her experience, which stuns him. Iroha reminds him of Sumi's feelings lately, which are deep feelings for Hikari, and it makes him realize this could lead to an accident, but the plan has already started, forcing Iroha to help Hikari. Meanwhile, Yuto gets to enjoy the food Sumi made, and he's nervous next to her, wishing Hikari would come back before he does anything stupid. Suddenly, Hikari and Iroha appear, saving Yuto because she wants to play some badminton. After their picnic date, Hikari and Yuto go home together, being awkward with each other because they're hiding something from each other. Hikari learns that Sumi is the girl Yuto's crushing on after he tells him, which makes him relieved. But then Hikari reveals that he made the picnic date to help Yuto and Sumi, but Yuto finds his effort pathetic. Hearing this, Hikari remembers his past where he and Yuto always agree with each other about how real girls aren't the same as fictional girls, which reminds him of what Yuto said about love. Then, Hikari snaps out of it and chases Yuto outside the train, where he immediately hugs him from behind. Hikari tells him how much of a better guy Yuto is, and how he wants him to be happy with the girl he likes. Suddenly, Yuto starts crying, not being able to hold back the sadness from the truth that Hikari just said, which hurts him because he doesn't know what to do. In the end, Hikari makes him cry, so he apologizes for being too easy on him. The next day, Hikari tells everything about Yuto to Iroha, and she finds it a bad idea, but she's still proud of him for trying to help his friend get a girlfriend. Hikari feels that Yuto will get Sumi one day, so he wishes him good luck. Suddenly, Hikari hears someone calling Iroha, and it's her little brother Chika. Suddenly, Chika punches Hikari in the face because he thinks Hikari's stalking her. Hikari gets knocked out and is scared that Chika might be Iroha's ex, but then Iroha reveals that he's just her little brother who just got home from studying abroad, which stuns Hikari. Chika doesn't like Hikari, so he forces Iroha to go home with him, leaving Hikari speechless and alone. Hikari's still stunned that Iroha has an overprotective and handsome brother, but then he realizes his glasses are broken. Later that night, Iroha yells at Chika for hurting Hikari, but Chika explains how he's just trying to protect her from a complete bum like Hikari. The next day, Hikari walks out of school as a crowd of girls gathers, whispering about an attractive man standing at the entrance. Initially indifferent, Hikari soon realizes that the individual in question is Chika, which immediately raises his concern. He assumes Chika is there to see Iroha, but to his surprise, Chika has come for him. Noticing that Hikari's glasses remain broken from their previous encounter, Chika forcefully takes them, insisting on fixing them himself. Later that night, Hikari receives a newly repaired pair of glasses, and this gesture leads him to reconsider his impression of Chika, believing that he may not be a bad person after all, especially as Iroha's brother. However, Hikari remains cautious, aware that Chika harbors a strong dislike for otaku culture. The following day, Hikari meets Chika at a local cafe, and during their conversation, Chika admits that he finds it difficult to accept that Hikari is dating Iroha, as he does not consider him particularly impressive in any aspect. He reveals that he is fully aware of their relationship and the reasons behind Iroha's feelings. However, he dismisses their bond as immature and directly demands that Hikari end the relationship, stating that he does not want Iroha to experience a heartbreak in the hands of a scrub. After Chika leaves, Hikari becomes deeply affected by his words. He struggles to reaffirm the value of his relationship, questioning whether he is truly capable of giving Iroha the happiness she deserves. Despite his doubts, he continues to search for meaning in what they share. The next morning, Yuto quietly observes Sumi in the garden. Aware of how strange his behavior appears, he attempts to compose himself when she notices him. Although he intends to ask her out, Sumi speaks first, expressing how much she enjoyed the picnic and suggesting that they repeat the experience with everyone. Her response disappoints Yuto, reinforcing his belief that they are not close enough. He leaves, questioning his own actions and motivations. A few days later, Hikari contacts Arisa and asks to meet, hoping to discuss his relationship with Iroha. They gather at a cafe where Hikari expresses his desire to take the relationship to the next level. Arisa jokingly suggests that he buy a ring, though her tone carries a hint of frustration, as she herself remains without a boyfriend. Encouraged by the idea, Hikari considers selling his personal collection to afford a ring. However, Arisa quickly forbids it, recognizing that such a decision would ultimately upset him. Instead, she offers him a job at an amusement park. Within days, Hikari begins working at the park as a bunny mascot, quickly becoming popular among visitors, and the experience brings him genuine happiness. He recalls a past visit with Arisa, when he celebrated her birthday there, and this memory motivates him to continue working hard, determined to bring joy to others. The following day, Iroha asks to walk home with Hikari, but he declines, explaining that he has other responsibilities. His response worries her, and at the same time, Hikari learns that Chika continues to question their relationship, though Iroha dismisses her brother's concerns, which unsettles him. After Hikari leaves, Arisa and Mitsuya invite Iroha to join them at a ramen shop, but she declines, sensing that Hikari is working diligently for her sake. The next day, noticing Hikari's exhaustion, Iroha visits his classroom and quietly falls asleep beside him. When Hikari awakens and sees her resting, he takes the opportunity to measure her finger size discreetly. Later, Iroha learns that Chika has directly told Hikari to end their relationship. Angered by his interference, she confronts Chika and insists that he respect her choices, declaring that she sees no one better than Hikari. However, Chika refuses to accept her perspective. In a tense moment, he corners her and reminds her that they are not related by blood, hinting that an Alabama relationship is not out of the question. Although he does not force her into anything, he makes it clear that he intends to wait until Hikari eventually leaves her. Meanwhile, Yuto withdraws from his usual activities, choosing not to play football with his classmates and instead spending his time on games. He feels conflicted, unsure of how to express his feelings for Sumi, and convinces himself that suppressing them is the safest option. During this time, he is struck in the face by a stray ball, and instead of concern, his classmates mock him. Yuto retreats to the nurse's office where Iroha approaches him. She asks about the picnic and apologizes for not considering his feelings more carefully. Yuto observes that she has become similar to Hikari in her kindness. So, encouraged by her sincerity, he opens up about his struggles and admits that he feels embarrassed by Hikari's attempts to push him toward love. In response, Iroha shares her own experience, explaining that Hikari is the first person who makes her truly fall in love. She advises Yuto that genuine feelings inevitably lead to emotional conflict, but that such experiences can also bring happiness, which resonates deeply with him. Moved, Yuto expresses how much he values Iroha as a friend, a sentiment that leaves both of them slightly embarrassed. Later, Iroha confronts Hikari about his recent behavior, questioning why he has been distant and unwilling to walk home with her. She suspects that Chika's influence may be the cause, but Hikari stops her before she can continue. Instead, he opens his bag and reveals how much effort he has been putting into something important. With a mixture of nervousness and sincerity, he presents her with a ring he has worked hard to obtain and gently places it on her finger. Overcome with emotion, Iroha begins to cry. In that moment, Hikari no longer concerns himself with others' opinions. He recognizes the meaning and value of their relationship and expresses gratitude for the friendships he gained through Iroha. To him, she represents his entire world. They share a heartfelt kiss, embodying the culmination of their journey together. Comment down below 3D baddies if you watched till the end. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.